Hey lovelies, you're welcome to reviews and recaps. I'm so sorry about my voice. I don't know what's going on this morning, but it's not fully there. It's a bit raspy this morning, and I've tried. So let's get into today's episode. The getaway trip. I'm actually so excited, and today I'm recording it as I'm watching it. So I'll watch, pause, record, say a little something in between, and then keep going. So, anyways, it started with Jeffrey and Morgan in the car. I'm like, ooh, the two little crays that I love. Don't get me wrong, I love me some Morgan and Jeffrey. Anyways, we move. So, anyways, they're in the car chatting and they're talking about their connections. So Jeffrey is like, oh, she likes Mark Anthony and whatnot. But when Andre's in the room, it's like she does not see anything. And Morgan was like, well, you need to figure that out. And then Morgan is like, she has Lyndon and Tony and they're completely different. So they were talking about how one is who they need and one is who they want, and that could they just mix both of them together. I'm like, girl, I know what you mean. That's the thing, sometimes when you're talking to multiple people, you just find that one has what you need and then the other, but you're not really liking him as much, and then the one that you really like is a little cray, and then so you're like, oh, why can't I just have the good qualities of this person and merge it with that of the other person, and then I'll have what I need, the perfect man. But I guess that does not exist. So then over on the other side, there was Anthony in the car with Tony and Lyndon. And so they are talking about Anthony having multiple connections. So Lyndon is like, who are you connecting with again? And then he listed Sue-Ann and Cynthia. And then talked about Mercedes as well. I'm like, okay, so Mercedes is still your connection? Interesting. So anyways, Tony is looking, a little suspect. I feel like Tony is boiling, but I guess we're going to find out why he's boiling, honey. So it's like Anthony and Lyndon are proper connecting, and then Tony is just there with his facial expressions ew. I'm like, okay, Anthony, what's going on? Oh, okay, Tony, what's going on? So Tony's like, I think something negative is going to happen. I'm like, bro, why are you coming with that negative energy? And Lyndon is like, well, I think you know what it's going to be. I'm like, bruh. I'm like, oh my gosh. So then everyone arrived in the middle of nowhere. It was like there was a swamp, there was alligators. Everyone was like, what is this? This is a ghetto getaway. What is going on? And I couldn't agree more. I'm like, what in the middle of the swamp is going on? Anyway, so nephew Tommy rolls in, and I don't know what he rolled in, but he was coming through over the waters with this dramatic entrance and then the claps. I'm like, okay, all right, Tommy. So then he's telling them that one lady will be eliminated tomorrow. And I'm like, all right, cool. So he's like, all right, they should get on and then head over to the location. So I'm like, okay, everyone had headphones or headsets. I'm like, okay, what sorts of experiences are we, what's happening here? What's going on? So I think it's called an airboat or something. And do you know what? It actually looked really fun, and it was very fast paced rather. It was really fast paced. And I was like, okay, they looks like they were having fun. You could see Mercedes putting her hand over her eyelashes because she's like, girl, she didn't want those lashes to fall off. That's the thing about when it's windy and you wear false lashes. Oh my goodness. You start to think is the glue gonna hold it together? Is it secure? Am I going to end up looking like a hot mess? What is this? So anyways, they arrive at the location. Everyone is running in to find rooms. I'm seeing a little flirtatious banter between Andre and Mercedes. I'm like, okay, looks like you guys have settled. Anyways, over on the other side, Tony and Lyndon decided to play a game of pool. So then Lyndon is like, let's play the game for Morgan's honor. And then Tony is like, let's play for where she's sleeping tonight. I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you little children? It is given controlling. It is given childish. What is going on with these two grown-ass men? So then Mercedes is on the bike behind them and singing, Tony. Tony. I'm like, girl, if you don't shut up with that chair thing. But yeah, it was funny though. So then Morgan walked in just casually. She didn't even know what was going on. And then Mercedes was like, this game of pool is for your heart. And then Lyndon is like, yes, something along those lines. I'm like, bruh. So then Tony's like, well, you're sleeping in my room tonight. And then Tony won. So Jeffrey and Mark Anthony were having a little conversation outside. And so, they were just talking about how they were both fine and how the chemistry is good between them. And then Andre walked in and Andre was like, can I just steal her for... And then he's like, I'm joking. And then called them in, I think, to eat, right? So I was like, okay, cool. What was interesting about the conversation with Jeffrey and Mark Anthony is Jeffrey was like, I like you. And then she didn't look at him. She smiled and looked away. She was doing this really like googly eyes, innocent, I'm shy kind of thing. It's either Jeffrey is just really, really charming or like she's really, really manipulative. I don't know which it is, but I guess we go and find out soon enough. So when it was time to eat, right, Morgan sat down, Tony sat next to her, and then Lyndon sat on the other side, and then Tony was having an attitude, and he's like, oh, I guess I'm going to leave. Like, bro, chill, you're in a process. You were dating Marcia, she wasn't acting like this. Like, what is your problem, sir? So then she's like, let's go talk outside for a minute. I'm just like, Morgan is sexy as hell. That's just a side point. So she's like, calm down, you're acting like a madman. And he's like, no, I'm not acting like a madman. And then she's like, can you calm down and let's go back in and act like you have some home training? I'm like, oh, all right, Morgan, you have a mouth on you. And then Tony was saying in his confessionals that he was taken aback by her comments. I get it, but also you're acting very childish and immature. So I'm not surprised that she called him out. So Anthony and Suan were having like their little game in a game room, and then Tony walked in. So Anthony was like, pushed him out, like, bro, get out. And I was like, all right, cool. I appreciate you wanting one-on-one time with her. And then he starts talking to Suan, and he's like that he's trying to build communication with her, blah blah blah. And then she's just looking like unbothered, like she just looks like, why am I here? And so then he's like, oh, have I burnt my bridge? And then she's like, well, you snooze you lose. I'm like, sis, the problem with you saying that is you are getting ready to get eliminated. There's probably a better way of doing it if your goal is to remain on the process or in the process. I'm just saying. Suan was like, I feel like you won't snooze for a long time. And then Anthony was like, so I have a deadline? So then Suan is like, if you see something that you want, you should go for it. Now, I completely agree with what she said. If you really like it, come get it. But if you don't, you gonna lose. And in the real world, right, if I was talking to a guy who I was expressing certain things to and saying what I needed and they weren't doing it, guess what? You're gonna wake up one day and I will not be there. So I completely agree with her. You snooze, you lose. So Cynthia and Andre went over to the other side to have a chat. So they were connecting, talking, and Cynthia was sharing in her confessionals that she gets along with Andre, but she has not opened up to Andre with some things that she has opened up to Tony about. And so that is something that sort of gives her cause for concern. So then she starts talking to Andre. She talks about the fact that, she's a bit worried about how flashy he is. And then he's like, he can be shallow, but he has a depth to him. And so he starts talking about how he was homeless at a point and how he lives for others and wants to help children get out of that. And so they connected about that. And now he was saying in his confessionals that he feels like both Cynthia and Jeffrey are ready. One is like wife material, cultured, so that's Jeffrey. And then Cynthia is ambitious, independent, and also ready. I'm like, okay, I'm glad you said both of them were ready, because I do get the impression that Cynthia especially is ready. Jeffrey... I'm not too sure. Jeffrey is interesting, I'll have to say. Like, I don't know what she's ready for. So then Morgan walked into the room. Morgan and Jeffrey have this like little cute relationship. I like it. And so then Tony walked in, and then Jeffrey was like, she wants a guy's perspective about her connections, basically. So then Tony's giving Jeffrey all the Tony advice, being all pragmatic. And so Morgan is like, you sound so pragmatic when it comes to other people's situations, but when it comes to your situation, you don't really have a lick of sense. So then Tony goes over there trying to like kiss her on the cheek. Can I just say that Morgan's skin is beautiful? It's like just glowing. Anyway, back to that. So then Morgan says to Tony that you can be a hothead and that's what scares me about you. So then Morgan is like, now that Mercia is not here and I have two connections, and then why are you treating me like that? And then Tony is like, you don't have two connections, you only have me. I'm like, okay, Tony, slow down. So then he goes on about, I feel no way about Lyndon. He's not a threat to me. You've been acting like he's a threat since day one, sir. What is going on? So Lyndon and Mercedes were having a little chit chat. Lyndon was trying to find out where Mercedes was with her connection. Has she chosen anyone? And then so she was like, with Anthony, the connection is a bit intimidating because he has kids, husband, all that kind of stuff. But with Mark Anthony, that's why she's leaning more towards Mark Anthony. And so Lyndon was like, well, he already has his choice for elimination then, which would be Mercedes. Of course, he didn't say that to her face. He said that in confessionals, but I was like, okay, well, fair enough. So the famous dinner that we have all been waiting for since last week. So before the dinner, right, some of the guys were taking like big gulps of like drinks. I'm like, okay, Tony was one of them. Okay. So then everyone is seated at the dinner. It looks like good vibes, good food. It was going well until Lyndon started asking questions. So Lyndon was like, Tony, who would you send home tomorrow? I'm like, guy, like, chill. So Tony answered the Tony way, which is, he was like, Morgan is his connection. So as long as Morgan doesn't go home, that's all he cares about. And I'm like, okay, fair enough. So Lyndon starts asking, like, if Mercia was here, what would happen? Like, would things be different? So then Tony was like, okay, let's talk about it. So if Marcia was here, yes, she is my connection, but we all know that Morgan has been my connection since day one. Let's talk about it. I'm like, okay. So then he's like, let me ask you something. How do you feel about the fact that I have a deeper connection with Morgan and you don't? Did you see Sue Ann and Blake's faces? I'm like, you guys are here for the mess. This is the most excited I've ever seen Blake in my life. Blake is here for the drama, for the shenanigans, as long as he is not in the middle of it. And that's why Sue Ann and Blake connect, okay? How do you feel about the fact that I've kissed Morgan 3, 4, 5, 6 times and you've never kissed Morgan? I'm like, bruh. Did you see how Morgan put her face in her palm? She was so embarrassed. So then Sue Ann is like, objection, hearsay. I'm like, yeah, girl. Someone needs to object. Because this is a double homicide, honey. So Tony is like, since you're asking me questions, let me ask you questions as well. And then Cynthia's like, let's chill it between you guys. This was so entertaining. I can't even. So then Lyndon was like, chill out. How do you feel about you saying if Mercia was here, I could have Morgan? Did you see Morgan's face? What? Guys, who do you guys believe? Do you believe Tony said that? Or do you believe that Lyndon is being petty? Let me know in the comment section below, because this is some crazy-ish and we need to get to the bottom of it. Like, seriously, this is insane. So then it was, did you say it? And then Mr. Tony said, yes, I said it. I said, what? Did you see Blake's face and Sue Ann? I can't lie. Blake and Sue Ann made this even more interesting for me. Like, their facial expressions was like, oh no. Yeah, I can't sing today. My voice is gone, man. But yeah, oh no. Like, this is insane. What the hell? Morgan was like, she was shocked. She was like, so he was ready to pass her around like an object. And I'm like, the way they were playing the pool, they both have issues, honey. Right? And most especially Tony has some deep-rooted issues, honey. Serious issues. So she's like, it made me start to look at him different. Honey, can I just tell you, please don't stay with this man. Don't pick this man. I think you're still gonna pick him, but please don't do that to yourself. You will only pick him if you were attracted to toxicity, which I think you may be, my sister. Don't do it. So then Tony's like, yeah, he was angry in the moment that Lyndon continues to be a nuisance. So then he's like, you're gonna sleep alone tonight. Let me be direct with you. Oh my God, Tony is crazy. If Morgan thought she was nuts, Tony is a nutter. Like, run. Tony makes Nergate look like child's play, honey. He is giving me aggressive. He's giving me hot-tempered. He's giving me abusive. Can I say that? Yeah. Like, yeah. That's what it's given, honey, and I don't like it. So then they're going back and forth. Tony's like, we can step outside. I'm like, what? What? This is crazy. So then Morgan walks off and Jeffrey follows her. I'm like, yes, girl, follow your girl, man, because this is nuts. This is crazy. Like, two grown-ass men talking like that, hella disrespectful, referring to the girl there like she ain't anything. Like, that is insane, guys. Like, what the hell? So then Lyndon came in to check in on Morgan. So he was saying like he's so sorry, he didn't mean for it to happen the way it did, and that it just felt like it was a game of like whose D is bigger, and it's like whose D is bigger tournament and blah blah blah, and he was so sorry for her to get caught up in the middle of that. And the thing is, I appreciate him coming to apologize. And in that moment, I saw what Morgan likes about Lyndon. He comes across as a very level-headed guy, someone who can admit that he's wrong. He's not hot-tempered at all, and someone that is sensitive. And I think in this moment, this is the first time I'm like, maybe that's who you need, my dear. Because you're a little psycho, honey, and you need someone that is more on the calmer side, reserved, which Lyndon is. Lyndon is still fun, but he is more on the chill side compared to this Tony. You and Tony will probably kill each other, and that is not a good thing. So Andre pulled Jeffrey over to the jacuzzi to talk. I feel like their connection is very sexual. No, is it me that thinks that? Anyway, so Andrea is in the jacuzzi chilling, and then she put her feet in the jacuzzi. She wasn't trying to like get in. And then of course they start talking, and then she gets in the jacuzzi with leggings on, okay? And so then they start kissing. I'm like, guys, can you like talk and stop kissing? So then she's like, I'm so guarded, but you unravel me like a little purse. I'm like, oh my God, this girl is good. And he looked so proud of himself. He felt like so manly and so and all of that. And he's like, oh, you're a little princess. And I'm like, you know what? This is why this charm works. And the thing is, I've noticed like when I tend to be more feminine, like guys they can't get enough. But it's interesting because I'm only like that when that guy has a lot of masculine energy himself, because that is something that I feel like I've been like, I do have like masculine energy, like quite a lot of it sometimes, because like I think it's getting better now with like the shift in like my profession, but like before I was quite masculine, and because like I worked in a very masculine dominated area, and then coming back and then meeting someone who, for instance, a guy that leads in is feminine, that just did not work for me, because I'm like, that's not enough masculine energy to make my feminine side a little bit more dominant, if that makes any sense. So, but when I meet some guys who are very masculine, I just naturally tend to fall into like more of my feminine side, which I quite like. So yeah, I think that is what Miss Jeffrey is doing, but I think she is very much leading with feminine almost all the time, unless she is in arguments, that's when the masculine side is like, rah, we gonna fight to the death, honey. So then Mr. Tony walked in to speak to Morgan. So he's like, he said it, but he feels like he owes her an explanation and that he was angry in the moment and that's why he said what he said. But she's been his number one since day one. And then Morgan was like, well, Cynthia brought up a good point that you should watch how people treat you when they're mad. And when you're mad at me, you don't treat me good. You're not kind to me. That's what she said. And it's interesting because in this moment, Morgan is being so calm. She's being so honest. She's not doing the negate scenario. She is not being cuckoo. She's just being honest about how she's feeling in this moment. So then his response is, I'm not going to go back and forth with you on you did this and I did this. I'm like, hun, what are we talking? What am I saying? What are you saying? Are you all right? Then Tony is like, how do you expect me to respond when you entertain this guy right in front of my face? And then Morgan is like, the same way I responded when you had Mercier. So then she's like, if we're starting off like this, it's crazy. That's crazy. So then she was saying in her confessional that these words are monumental and that she does not know how they are going to recover from that. And I could see in her eyes like she was genuinely hurt. I think she really thought like Tony slam dunk, this is who I'm going home with. But with that, she finally started to have like serious doubt. So then Tony's like, the question is, do you continue? No, that's not the question. Are you all right? No. Time out. I cannot stand Tony right now. What is, do you continue? No. And he's like, that's not good enough for me right now. Like, no, she ain't got no answer for you. You just hurt her. You just humiliated her publicly. You just embarrassed her. Like, why does she have to give you an answer in this moment, Mr. Tony? Am I the only one that is irritated and pissed about this? Let me know in the comment section below, guys. So then Tommy came over, pulled the guys to the side, and they were having a chat about who their favorite connections are and who they're not connecting with. So in terms of who they're not connecting with, a lot of the guys said Sue and Mercedes. And so, of course, nephew Tommy was like, okay, you guys go break the news. It ain't gonna be me. So he left them to decide who would be breaking the news to the girls. So Andre called forth Mercedes and Suan. And then, of course, they didn't tell us who got eliminated. So we'll have to wait until next week to find out. But guys, did you see the preview of next week? It's about to be heated. Now, it looks like Morgan and Lyndon kissed. I'm like, okay, Morgan. I'm kind of like, all right, anything but Tony at this point. Like, I want anyone but Tony. Morgan, please. So we're going to have to wait and see. But anyways, thank you very much for listening. Please give this video a thumbs up and please subscribe if you haven't already. And tap that bell for notifications so you know every single time that I post. Also, let me know, what did you think of this episode? Let me know in the comment section below, honey. Yeah, and I'll see you later. Bye.